And indeed, I'm actually seriously encouraged by the fact that you were discussing as Kenya Institute of Management, Governance, Leadership, and Management in 2010, and trying to look at what this whole thing means to Africa, whether indeed we can claim the 21st century. The 19th century belonged to Europe and America. Brazil, Russia, India, China, Southeast Asia took the 20th century. Africa entered the 20th century, not even the 21st century, a poor and a colonized region. Can Africa therefore claim the 21st century? My central message to us this afternoon, or say this morning, this afternoon, is that yes, it can be done. And I'm sure you have heard this theme going through. I know I've heard of Chairman Mutiso talk of impossible and removing the I&M. Reminds me of Investments and Mortgages Bank. And then you remove that and you say it is possible. If Barack Obama was here, say yes, we can. And I want to say from here in Mombasa, it is truly possible to claim the 21st century. In the 21st century, which is just a decade old now, and I want to congratulate Kenya Institute of Management for being so proactive. How many of us in the world, in this continent, thought of taking stock of the very first 10 years of the 21st century? But you were able to think, and I think no wonder that even the UNDP and UN system were able to join you in addressing the very critical matter of MDGs. But in the 21st century, a lot has changed in Africa, even the first 10 years. We all know that education has spread. Education has been phenomenal. Life expectancy, has it increased or has it decreased? That is a matter that if you were to continue, I would have wanted to challenge you. Gains in civil liberties and political participation have been made. You've expanded the political space. Africa has enormous unexploited resources, even we now begin seriously. And yet Africa has also the experience with several development paradigms. Many African countries have made important social and economic reforms. In Kenya, we have the economic takeoff blueprint called Vision 2030. Our friends in Rwanda, I don't know whether there are delegates from Rwanda, even are more optimistic. They're talking of Vision 2020, as well as in Tanzania, where they've also given themselves that benchmark of 2020, to name just but a few. Even Zambia, actually, are talking about Vision 2030. So it's like the whole of the African continent, in order to claim this millennium, is up in arms against obstacles that they have all identified and want to be able to move forward. It is often stated that African and Asian countries were at par in the 1960s. Indeed, the Kenyan, the Ghanaian, and the South Korean economies were comparable. Just sample this. Today, South Korea is one of the largest economies in the world. In 1962, per capita GDP of Korea was only $82 US. And by 2008, it had jumped phenomenally to 18,000 US. Now, President Park initiated export-led growth, which was supported by dedication, by commitment, anti-corruption practices, and devoid of nepotism. In the 1973-79 big push comes into mind in Korea. Note that South Korea's history is not devoid of policy mistakes. We all make our mistakes, policy mistakes, and some of them very serious. What stands out is that economic policies were adjusted in the case of Korea before they actually went out of line. Lessons from South Korea and others indicate a clear relationship between leadership, governance, and economic growth. The impediments to sustained economic growth in Africa are mainly attributable to bad leadership, which leads to bad governance. But what is governance in the first place? I'm sure you spend a lot of time discussing this. In a nutshell, it's the manner in which power is exercised in the management of a country's social and economic resources for development.